I talk about reducing dementia risk because
It's the overarching.
that's the broader term. But just coming back to that you mentioned, so many people are impacted by dementia in its different forms, and that either as carers or sufferers, or as you say, both. Women are disproportionately affected massively. 2/3 of dementia sufferers are women. Women make up the majority of carers. It is women carrying the burden both of the condition and the caring. We know that estrogen is really powerful in the brain. We know that the mechanisms of dementia start 20 to 30 years earlier. Most women are diagnosed with dementia between 70 or 80. What happens when women are about 50 that might trigger this process of menopause? That is an area of study and research.
We all know that dementia is on the rise. There's a rather sobering diagram on the Alzheimer's Research UK homepage that shows that 1 in 2 of our lives will be affected by the syndrome. If that seems rather high, it's because it includes those who care for sufferers, as this can be as devastating as the syndrome itself. I first noticed Susan Saunders because she was sharing such positive, hopeful messages, and of course part of her message includes the need for us to move more now to try to prevent the onset of dementia. With just over 2 in 10 people in the UK developing it, and just over another 2 being carers, and then another 1 being both carer and then sufferer themselves, it's clear that we all need to know as much as we can about how we can do our best to prevent dementia or delay the symptoms as far as possible, or to be as well as we can be to be able to look after a loved one. Having had first-hand experience of this, Susan trained as a health coach to be able to help people using the tools she's learned and sharing her incredibly important message. I started the conversation with Susan by asking her about her favourite things to do.
Almost all the things I like to do involve getting out and about, whether that is walking my dog, going to a beach. I live in London, so going to a beach isn't that easy. But I do whenever I can. I live near the river, so I walk by the river. I love going to the theatre and art galleries and that kind of stuff. I love being physically and mentally stimulated.
Oh, lovely answer. That's a great summary. And I thoroughly agree. And if I had time for more of the theatery and so on, I would love it. But I certainly get out walking as much as I can. I really, really agree with you on that. So would you say then that that sounds like that you really don't take life for granted. You really relish your ability to do those things. Would that be accurate?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I think as we get older, whatever our circumstances are, we are faced with thinking, well, what do I really want to do? How do I really want to spend my time? And of course, we all have pulls on our time and responsibilities that mean that not that much of our time is our own. And therefore, when we do have a bit of time to ourselves, it's really precious and valuable. And we have to think what we really want to do with it.
And who we want to do it with as well, whether it's alone time or nurturing lovely friends time. So important. Yeah.
Yes.
We are here to talk about dementia, and you have experienced it firsthand. When did it first come into your life?
It first actually came into my life when I was a teenager, and my grandmother was diagnosed with dementia, my maternal grandmother. And I would see my mum going off from one side of London to the other to go and take care of her at weekends. But I didn't really compute what it meant. And this is the 80s, and I don't think the word dementia was used really. So it didn't really compute with me kind of what was going on. But it then came back into my life much more dramatically when I was in my mid-30s and my mum was diagnosed with dementia. And at that point in my life, I had a toddler and a newborn. I was working full time. And I was in that sort of new baby, new family kind of bubble. And then suddenly I had to deal with taking care of my mum. And so that was just such a shock and so unexpected. And I felt so unprepared for it. And my friends were at the stage where they were leaving their kids with their mum for the weekend and going away with their husbands. And I
Yeah.
was leaving my kids with my husband and going to take care of my mum.
Mm.
So it was, so it was a very rapid learning curve about what was needed and what was required. And there weren't many resources, and we didn't have social media, of course, and because this was over
Mm.
20 years ago. And so I didn't really know where to turn or what to do. And felt I was constantly kind of running to keep up. Like, what does she need next? What's going to go wrong next? How do I juggle all these different things, family and mom and work and, all those things, it was a lot to take on.
And how long did that phase last?
Well, from the point of her being diagnosed with severe vascular dementia, that was the
Right.
diagnosis we were given. She then lived another 12 years, but towards the end, I couldn't do it all by myself. We had carers coming in
Yeah.
as well. But then that's a different thing, because then you have to manage that, that
Mm.
team and what do they need and what are their requirements and how does that work? So that was a different thing. But yeah, so it was a long phase of life.
Yeah. And so did you only get that sort of support in a way towards the end? Did you have no support before that, or was there anything around that you could help, you could lean on?
Well, yes, I mean, the council provided. No, they didn't provide. I paid for, but they put me in touch with an agency that had dementia specialist carers. And they also had a day centre, which she went to, which is dementia specialist day centre, which she went to 1 or 2 days a week, because of course your budget cuts kept happening. It kept sort of being reduced and reduced, but we did manage to keep her going there at least 1 day a week for as long as we could. So you God, I mean, this is a whole other this would be a whole other podcast. I think the
Mm.
kind of negotiating your way through the kind of quagmire of what are we eligible for? What
Mm.
does it cost? How do I get it? Well, this kind of, and the, the cost, anyone who has cared for someone with dementia too, the cost, as soon as you stop being able to do everything yourself, the costs are just
Yeah.
astronomical. So there's all that, but I really hope now that things are better resourced, better explained, and there is more help. And there's certainly some amazing people on Instagram doing who have accounts for dementia carers and lots of resources and advice. And I think I see them. I think, oh gosh, I wish I had
Yeah.
something similar.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, you really had the hardest role to play in that. Absolutely. And as you say, a very steep learning curve, but just and she was very lucky because she had you advocating for her all the time, for presumably to try and keep her at home as much
Yes.
as possible and so on. And obviously lots of people don't even have that. So
Yeah.
um incredibly difficult. So then about 10 years ago, forgive me, I don't know when she passed away. Was it
Uh,
before then?
Gosh, yeah. So that's nearly 9 years ago.
Right.
Eight,
So
9 years ago.
and about 10 years ago you started blogging with your friend, is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So having had this, seeing this very clear family pattern of dementia and of caring responsibilities, and looking at my own daughters, I thought, well, what can I do to reduce my risk? And so I started reading whatever I could, whenever I could, which wasn't very often, about how we can age well and reduce dementia risk. And there was so much conflicting advice out there. It was all sort of one day you'd read an article in the paper that was, don't drink coffee, it will kill you. And then the next day you'd read, drink coffee, you'll live forever. And you're like, what, how do we make sense of this? So I was sort of trying to unravel this, and also initially really just think about what can I eat, and how can I cook. And I was talking to my friend Annabelle about that, and she had similar concerns and similar family histories, and so we thought, why don't we do a blog? So that's what we did. So the Age Well project, which is what the blog became, started 10 years ago, and so it was really a focus to help us keep on track with our own personal Age Well projects. And initially we had a lot of recipes on the blog, what we were cooking, and then it was sort of, and because our friends kept asking us things as well, so we thought, well, friends can read it, and then it sort of took off really, which we hadn't expected, and we got a book deal. So that was all kind of really exciting. And then while we were writing the book, the Age Well project book, I thought that, this is really great, and I love the writing, but what I'd really like to be doing is helping people more directly, and personally. And at that point, I qualified as a health coach. So I did that, and then I kept coming back to reducing dementia risk and brain health.
Yeah.
So that was really my interest and my passion. Reading everything I could and thinking, what can we be doing? And the science and the research has moved on so much in the last 20 years, or even less, even the last 5 years. So I did an advanced coaching qualification with an American neuroscientist called Dr. Dale Bredesen, who wrote a book called The End of Alzheimer's, and he has a program. It's a very intense coaching qualification, took a year, but I was really glad to have done that, because it really helped me focus on what I really wanted to do, and the way in which I really wanted to help people. I mean, like, you had a very personal experience, and that led you to the coaching you do. This led me to actually really what I want to be doing.
No, it's brilliant. And as always, stories where you've had a personal reason that's driven to it creates that kind of North Star. There's such an important reason that you're passionate about, that it sort of gives you that fulfillment, because you feel that you are giving back, because obviously you've learned so much anyway through the entire process. But you wanted to, it sounds like you wanted to really focus on the positives of what you can help for in preventative terms, rather than the more difficult side of the caring and so on. So and that makes absolute sense, because that's what you're wanting to do in your own life. I just wanted to read a little quote from one of your posts together, which I absolutely love, which is, you say, we're not biohacking bros or woo-woo wellness experts. We're two working mums who want the second half of our lives to be even better than the first. And I just thought that was so good, because it's true, isn't it? There's also the way people see what you're doing, and health coaching, there's a lot of different types of health coaches and so on, but your reason for doing that is genuinely to help people about something very specific. And there's probably an awful lot of people out there who have the same fears as you about aging, and we all should, because the chances of it affecting our lives is very, very high. I mentioned in my introduction about the Alzheimer's Research UK page that's got really slightly traumatizing picture of how many people are affected, both sufferers, carers, or both. And it's, the total is 1 in 2. And that's, I was quite shocked by that. I have to admit, I really didn't think it was that high. So it's incredibly important work that you're doing. So can you tell us, for those who know less, and I am one of them, what dementia actually is? I looked up, it's not a disease, it's a syndrome, a set of symptoms. I find that quite interesting. So if you can tell us a bit more, just in layman's terms, that would be really useful.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Wendy. Dementia is a term for a set of symptoms the most well known of which is memory loss, but also losing language, losing words, failing to problem solve. It's losing thinking abilities, thinking speed, understanding, judgment, and I suppose ultimately independence, because when dementia takes hold, it becomes much harder to do the normal activities of daily living.
Yeah.
And to the point in which eventually that becomes impossible. The most common cause of dementia is Alzheimer's disease. So that is the condition, that's the illness, as it were. The second most common cause of dementia is vascular dementia. So that's when the blood vessels which feed the brain are damaged in some way, possibly as a result of a stroke or a series of or a heart attack, something like that. So that's a slightly different thing, and that is the second most common cause of dementia. So those are the causes, and it's people often use the word dementia and Alzheimer's interchangeably, but that's not a problem, but it's not correct. And so I talk about reducing dementia risk because
it's the overarching,
that's the broader term. But just coming back to the stat that you mentioned, yes, so many people are impacted by dementia in its different forms, and they're either as carers or sufferers, or, as you say, both. But women are disproportionately affected massively. 2/3 of dementia sufferers are women. Women make up the majority of carers.
Right.
So it is women carrying the burden both of the condition and the caring. So that's something we need to be really aware of as women, that we are twice as likely as men to get it, and also much more likely to end up as carers or experience being a carer.
And is that a factor of the fact that the women tending to live longer, or is there something else at play that you're aware of?
That's the $64 million question. I mean, yes, women do live longer, but that is that's not the reason that women get dementia, although obviously there are more older women, and therefore they are more likely to have dementia because they've lived longer. But yes, what will the answer be when all the research has been done, if that is possible? I think there are a large number of factors, one of which is that we know that reproductive hormones, particularly estrogen, play a really large role in particularly the energy supply in the brain. We also know that the conditions of dementia in the brain, the first signs within the brain, even if they are symptomless, start 20 to 30 years before the symptoms show. That makes sense. Am I making sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Therefore, okay, so we know that estrogen is really powerful in the brain. We know that the mechanisms of dementia start 20 to 30 years earlier. Most women are diagnosed with dementia between 70 or 80. What happens when women are about 50 that might trigger this process, menopause? So that is an area of study and research. At the moment, Dr. Lisa Mosconi has just written a really fantastic book,
Brilliant book,
about the menopause brain, just looking at what that is. That doesn't mean that menopause causes dementia or Alzheimer's, which I have seen on social media. Nor does it mean that HRT will cure,
prevent
dementia or Alzheimer's. It's such a broad area, and we are all so individual. There's really interesting research going on at the moment, and I think we will know more soon about the correlation of all these different things. I mean, to your point about why is it that women are more likely to experience dementia, once we've left out longevity and menopause, I think there are also socioeconomic factors to consider. Women are potentially less likely to have had further education historically. I mean, not now, but historically, women are less likely to have had high levels of education. They may have been homemakers and not in the workplace, so not had that mental stimulation. They may have been prioritized in care for family in all its different forms rather than spending time exercising or reading a book or looking after themselves. There are so many factors at play here.
Yeah. And as you say, thank goodness there is more research happening. Thank goodness there are people like Dr. Mosconi. She also wrote The XX Brain before that, which was just such a fascinating read. And that exposure means that there will be more research. And there's been a real lack of research into women using women in general to look at correlations. It's been previously much more easier to fund studies on men because obviously women are cyclical. There's so many variants because we're such unique, nuanced individuals.
Yeah.
Sorry, not saying men aren't.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's great. And you're right. I'm sure there'll be a lot more, hopefully, decisive answers so that we can really help with this ability to try to prevent to a certain extent, but certainly delay as far as possible, which is sort of what you're all about. And are there any tests that you can do in advance to see if this is something that might happen to you in the future?
That's another really big area. There are cognitive tests that a GP will do, and there are coming to market more tests that will look at proteins in the blood or in the spinal cord, to see certain levels of certain proteins which are like amyloid beta and tau, which are related to Alzheimer's. But at the moment, how accurate are those tests? And also with some of those sorts of things, people can have high levels of proteins like amyloid and tau in their brains, but not have the symptoms of dementia. They may have some kind of cognitive reserve. That means that even though their brain actually looks like a dementia brain, it doesn't act like one, so they're not having the symptoms. So there's a long way to go. I think there are privately some tests. They're more available in the US than here, but I know people are trying to. I got a message today from someone. People are trying to bring tests to the UK.
Yeah, which is interesting in itself. As you say, it's no guarantee that it's going to happen, but I suppose if it makes you work harder to try to prevent, then it can only be a good thing. But that's different. People take these things in different ways, don't they? So
exactly. And then is it going to, if you had a test and it said actually you've got high levels of something, are you going to be stressed and panic?
Just as bad, yeah.
Which is worse, or are you going to use it as motivation, which is what you hope? But that everybody's different, and you don't know your reaction until after you've got the results, essentially. So there's all that at play, and who administers them, and how are the results delivered. All those things have to be considered.
So the research so far has come up with a list of risk factors that they believe, some to a greater, some slightly lesser extent, are risk factors for getting dementia at some point in your life. And if we could just quickly go through those, not to sort of analyze each one at all, but just for information for people if they haven't seen it before, it would be useful. Now, so on my reading of it, about half of them are something that we can do something about. And that, to me, and clearly to you, feels really powerful, that you've got the ability to sort of work against these risk factors, where if there were a list of 12 or 14 that were not, that would be much more scary. So as you talk about it, you've said it in your post, it makes you feel hopeful, because there is something you can do. So if we whip through them, so smoking, obviously,
Yeah.
you can do something about that. That's your choice. Excessive alcohol, that's your choice.
Well, it's a choice, and I mean, addiction is a different issue.
Sorry, absolutely, yes, you're absolutely right to say that, and I'm sure you've heard that before. But it is, it's not something that is in the past that you can't change or whatever.
Yeah.
Obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, and then obviously the one that I'm sort of focus on most, physical inactivity.
Yeah.
Depression, very difficult one. And then obviously brain injury, hearing loss. I found that fascinating, because I suppose that's like, sorry, what the other one, that was it, hearing loss that was added, or was it sight loss? Sorry, I've got it the wrong way around.
Untreated failing eyesight was the one that's just been added. Yes, but I
Right.
think hearing loss is such an interesting one, midlife hearing loss, and it's so under-recognized, but it is a bigger risk factor for dementia than smoking.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow. So I'm really evangelical about people getting hearing aids in midlife, because we all have to wear glasses. Everyone's got reading glasses, and we don't think about hearing aids and hearing loss in the same way, and people are kind of embarrassed about it. I must tell you about a neighbour of mine who is absolutely beautiful. She looks like Sienna Miller, and she's an artist, and she's very cool. And she said to me, "Oh, Susan, I've got to tell you that I've just got hearing aids, because I was struggling in crowded environments, restaurants, or parties, to hear. So I'd listened to what you've been saying, and as though I've just got hearing aids." And I thought, oh, that's so brilliant. So fantastic.
Yeah. And I can sort of, I mean, if there's any link, this is clearly me talking from no evidence or reading at all, but with the distortion of life, with both visual and sound impairment, where you're sort of slightly removed almost from the world because it's not quite as accurate, everything's slightly fuzzier in either one way or another, then there's perhaps a tendency to sort of withdraw a little bit, rather than that full engagement. And I'm sure that probably doesn't help. And, from knowing people very close to me who have got hearing loss and who struggle with that, I can see why that would be a connection, sadly. And it's also, it can make you very fearful. Obviously, if your sight or your hearing are particularly bad, that can really create sort of anxiety about your situation. So I can really understand that. And obviously you talked earlier about education in younger life, which, as you say, was a lot worse in many decades ago for those who are of the more relevant age now. But also I was interested by air pollution in later life. And that was sort of, it's not a significant one of them all, but it's there. It has significance.
Oh yeah, yes. There is a clear correlation between air pollution and dementia risk, and particularly for people like me who carry the ApoE4 gene, which is the gene linked to increased risk of Alzheimer's, particularly. And it's air pollution is such a tricky one, because there's a lot we can't do.
Yeah.
It's just there. But we can try and avoid very busy roads. And I have an air purifier which is sat down beside me here. I've switched it off while we're recording this because it hums. But I do use that. And also I think it's again being conscious of it. I live in London on a main road and under the flight path, so I know my air quality is poor. Therefore, that's another motivating factor to deal with the things I can deal with, like keeping moving and eating well and stimulating my brain.
And also making sure, I forget the word, that's typical, but about sort of cleaning out the effects of that from your system. Do you know the word I'm looking for?
Well, yeah, detox or detoxification.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Thank you. Detoxification and sort of understanding how much that's possible for you and ways you can do it, presumably is also important. Yeah. So so in your book, you talk about 6 pillars of better brain health. So let's just say that the book is called The Power Decade: How to Thrive After Menopause, and with clear reason, because women are the most affected in both the ways that you said, but also this is the time. And I say this is the time because I've just turned 50 and I'm married to menopausal. So it's definitely this for me as well. So can you tell us about your 6 pillars, and just a few sort of little practical things that people could get started with before they run out and buy your book?
Well, yes. So the book is slightly different, but my 6 pillars of better brain health are diet, exercise, sleep, stress reduction, cognitive engagement, and then environment, which is a rather broad term to cover your social environment plus your built environment, i.e. where it is that you are trying to reduce your dementia risk. So the environment in which you're doing that, the people and the places, essentially. So I mean, they're all really, really important. And I said earlier, when I started thinking about my own health and aging well and reducing dementia risk, I kind of thought it was about food and what I ate, and if I got my diet right, everything else would be fine. And then the kind of big journey, the learning curve, as it were, was realizing how important so many other things are, that you've got to think holistically about your health. And there's no point eating beautifully if you're super stressed, or you absolutely stimulating your brain but never moving, and it's got to be the whole thing, the whole experience. So top tip, of course, there's so much. Top tip for each thing, I in terms of what to eat, I really rate the importance of oily fish for brain health, omega-3 fatty acids, EPA and DHA, that we find in what are called smash fish. So that is salmon, mackerel, anchovy, sardine, and herring. Smash.
I've never heard of that.
No,
I like that. Yes,
I'm
that's
always
great.
banging on about smash fish. So yeah, you don't have to smash the fish. That's just the acronym.
Yes.
For those kind of fatty fish. They are the best source of EPA, DHA, which really feed our brain. These omega-3 fatty acids cross the blood-brain barrier and really help feed our brain. So, and for people who don't eat fish, a marine algae supplement does the same thing, but or a similar thing. So that would be one thing for that. Movement, I'm sure we've got loads more to talk about in terms of movement.
We can come back to that if you want.
But well, let's come back to it. But strength training, I think building muscle is absolutely vital. The correlation between muscle strength, particularly leg strength, and cognitive function is really clear. So, but we can come back to that. Sleep, sleep for women in midlife is such a difficult subject. I have a few coaching clients who sleep really, really well, and I'm like, how do you do it? How is that happening? But for most women in midlife and beyond, sleep is a challenge, but I do think we can improve it by absolutely ridding ourselves of the trappings of modern life, when we're in our bedrooms, when we're trying to sleep, and in the 2 to 3 hours before, certainly 1 to 2 hours before we try and go to bed. And I'm always amazed when people say, or my clients will say, oh yeah, well, I'm charging my phone and my laptop and my Kindle right next to the bed. And then I sort of wake up in the night and I check them all. And now I've moved them outside and I'm sleeping better because you're suddenly all those things aren't charging and pinging and lighting up, and your brain kind of knows that they're there, that they're, so even when you wake up, you sort of
Yes.
have a quick scroll at 3 in the morning. So really simple things do make a difference. And I know there are people who have tried every single sleep hygiene protocol going and they still can't sleep. But for a lot of us, we can make some quite simple changes that will make a difference, because we always kind of think that that last scroll won't affect our sleep, and it does. Stress reduction. I think my view is we live in a really stressful world. We're not adaptive as well. We're built to be roaming the savannah, hunting down saber-toothed tigers or whatever. That's what we're built for. That and the big design fault is that we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
And we're in these stone boxes and with artificial light and all sorts of things, sat and chairs and all this kind of stuff. And so we're just not designed, and the only thing to do really is to accept that and find whatever it is in our lives that helps reduce the stress that causes. You're never going to get rid of stress. I mean, if you've got a horrible boss and you change jobs and you're happy, of course that's going to make a difference. But ultimately, we are just in the wrong environment. So we have to find things that help us adapt and help us feel happy within that environment. And whether that's pottery or yoga or dry stone walling, it doesn't matter. It's just finding the thing that makes you feel happy. Cognitive engagement, new stuff. What can you do that's new? What is your new thing? And whether that is walking the dog on a different route or packing up your entire life and going around the world for a year, it doesn't matter. It's your brain loves novelty. It loves having to do new things and build new channels. We get habituated to activities, and the brain's like, oh, that's great. I can link those neurons together, and that will save me having to think about what the dog walk route is. And so if you change it, the brain's like, oh, okay, I've got to relink a load of stuff. So that's worth doing. And then environment. We've talked about pollution, but being around people and talking to strangers.
Yeah.
Talk to a stranger every day. It's the best workout you can give your brain, because your brain's having to think, who is this person? What do they want? Are they going to eat me? Are they going to try and kill me? But that it is that sort of prehistoric brain thinking, is this situation safe and how do I respond to it? And that's a really good workout for your brain.
Yeah.
So talk to strangers.
Yes, I would always encourage people when they're out on a walk, even just try not to just nod at the passing person coming your way, but try even just saying morning or lovely day, isn't it? And you feel so much better afterwards. This small lift and trying to make eye contact. I think I've said it on here before, I'm not sure. My kids' old headmistress used to say, give a smile, get a smile. And I just love that little phrase because it is so true. People find it hard to resist a smile. And actually it helps everyone, doesn't it? So I love that. Interaction is so key. And obviously, as people age and tend to go out less or go into new situations less, that happens less. So you're absolutely, it's a great bit of advice. So back to moving. And I want to say moving because I don't want to say exercise, because I am having done a little bit of reading myself, although there's lots of research still to be done, about how much, so the dosage of exercise and how much that affects the ability to both prevent and delay, it seems that there's swathes of evidence that moving helps. And simplifying it to that level, I think, is a really good thing, because then it takes that onus off, well, you've never exercised in your life, and actually it's something that you hate because you see the gym as, a hellhole, and things are, but in fact, embracing, as I've mentioned my message about the importance of just moving more and in more ways is key. And to your point about cognitive engagement, trying a new thing, it doesn't have to be some really difficult exercise thing. It can just be a new dance that, you pull up on YouTube and say, I want to try the salsa. You can have no one else there, but you can have a go and have a laugh at yourself. and you only need to do it once. It doesn't, you don't have to be good at something. But the importance of movement does seem to be very clear. And you talked about weightlifting. Now, a lot of people instantly think of large dumbbells and, again, gyms and things like that. But a lot of people, as they age, stop lifting their own body weight. And I talk an awful lot about going to the ground and back up, because that's resisting gravity, using your entire body weight, and primarily using your legs, which you alluded to, those leg muscles being absolutely key. And yet, as we get older, and because of modern life, meaning we've got chairs, we don't need to, we've got beds, we don't need to, that ability to get up and down to the ground tends to reduce. And for me, that's my top tip, my quick hack in a way, is to say, practice that on a daily basis, and keep practicing it on a daily basis. And that may serve you in many more ways than you realize, not just the mobility and strength that I talk about, and the ability to access your other activities in daily life, or all the activities you want to do. It might also be helping potentially prevent dementia.
Yes. And also what we're both talking about from different angles is independence, is maintaining independence.
Absolutely.
You want to have the physical and mental abilities to stay independent for as long as possible. That's what we're all after. And it doesn't matter whether you can lift weights or translate War and Peace from the original Russian. It's it's about what do you need to stay independent, and what do you need that's a little bit more than that, and how much further can you go? But that's what we want. Physical, being able to get out of a chair, being able to dress ourselves, pay the bills, whatever it takes for us to be independent.
And we can all practice in movement terms. We can all practice that now, because it's incredible how early in life people start to struggle to get out of a chair or help themselves to get out of chairs, because we're all a bit tired and so on. So we're pushing with the arms, but then we end up pushing down onto the arms every time and not actually just freeing our arms and getting out. So there's lots of little ways that our body quickly takes over before the brain's thought, oh, actually, I need a different angle on this, or we never do. And it's that mindful knowledge of what little things can I do throughout my day that are actually going to really benefit me in the long run, which, is all my stuff. But also, as you say, weight bearing. And there's other ways, again, around weight bearing. So when you're out on a walk, putting a pack on is a really good thing to do. Often people will go for plan a longer walk at some point. They'll put a pack on and they haven't done it in a long time, and they'll really struggle with their shoulders and their back because they've not sort of practiced it. But when we go out on a walk, there's nothing stopping us putting a pack on with a little bit of weight in it, even if it's a couple of cans of soup. It doesn't matter what it is, to just help us with that weight bearing. There's also great things like weighted vests, if you're not bothered about how you look, that are great because they're both front and back, so they're keeping you nice and upright. But there's always ways around the things you don't want to do. There's always opportunities, and I think that's, I love the fact that there are. It's about healthy living, and prioritizing your own health, putting your own health first now, so that either, as you say, you stay independent for as long as you can, or you're in the best shape you can to help someone when it does hit. Because obviously then when you're caring for someone else, that's hugely stressful on your own system. And so the healthier you are, the better that you can do that for not only them, but also your other dependents. We talk a lot about, with my friends, the sandwich generation. It's such a good term because, you're looking after young ones. Thankfully, they're getting a bit older now. They need a bit less looking after. And then the generation above starts to need more care, and you sort of pull both ways, and you're trying to have a career and just small things like that, and a social life, oh no, this is a really fascinating area, and it's really important work you're doing.
Thank you.
And tell me, when you are working with your clients, how do they come to you in one way and leave feeling another?
I hope so. Yes, so that's what they tell me. Yes, so what I want, I think for me, two things. One, we can never guarantee that we're not going to get dementia. We can do all this work and it could still happen to us. We have to accept there are no guarantees. But also I know when people come to me for coaching, often they are living with an enormous amount of fear, as I was, that dementia may come for them. And so the goal is for them to finish coaching with me, knowing that they are doing everything they possibly can to reduce their risk. No guarantees, but they're doing everything. They have built the habits, because I also qualified as a habit coach, so I thought that's really important, because similarly to you, I'm not someone who says, hey, you work with me for 3 months, you'll lose 10 pounds or whatever, 20 pounds, whatever. The goal is that you have built the habits that have been scientifically proven to reduce dementia risk. That's what we're trying to achieve. So that's what I give my clients.
And having the knowledge, because forearmed is forewarned. You can be ready to a certain extent, but as you say, you've got the knowledge, so then it's up to you. And I think there's an awful lot of there's a lack of knowledge for a start. And so you're doing a brilliant job in both social media and book terms, getting that message out there. And then when people need more individual help, because they've got barriers they can't see past, then, that's really, really beneficial as well. Because with that knowledge, then we have more choices. But when we don't know, and we don't have the choices. And I see my work as well. If someone wants to come and work with me forever, it's kind of defeating the purpose. The point is to come, learn, absorb, and for me, embody the movements, so that, like you're saying, they become habitual in your daily life. You're moving in a different way than you did before. And then my job is done.
I mean, for me, I would say it's the knowledge, but it's also the habits and the mindset, and the three things you have to work together. You have to know what you've got to do and how important that is, but you also have to build the habits to make sure that you're doing that long term, and the mindset to want to do it and to keep you on track.
And so it's been an absolute pleasure having you on here, and I've learned loads, and I hope the audience has too. I'm sure they have. And it's hopefully been a positive conversation. The point is that we have got more information. We're getting more and more information. There's lots of things we can do, and that's empowering. Are there any final little habits or anything that you can suggest to people that they could make a little change in their lives?
One small thing which I'm sure will resonate with you, Wendy, is use your hands. Do something other than typing on a keyboard that uses your hands. It stimulates the brain. It helps produce dopamine, which is one of the feel-good hormones, the reward system. And our hands have a very specific relationship with the brain. They're kind of talking to the brain. So anything we can do that uses our hands, whether that's knitting or crochet or gardening or curtain kriya meditation that has finger tapping or pottery, whatever it is, use your hands, get them talking to your brain.
That's brilliant. Lovely. Oh, perfect. Well, that's a lovely place to end. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for giving me your time. And I will link to your books and your social media and your website in the show notes. So for anyone who wants to find them, it'll all be in there.
Okay. Thank you so much, Wendy. I've really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
I hope you've enjoyed listening. And if you have, you can help by doing 3 things. First, press the follow button to tell podcast platforms you want to listen again. Second, please give the show a 5-star rating and leave a review about why you liked it. And third, I'd love you to share it with friends and family or on your socials, for which I'm truly thankful. Finally, if this podcast is making you want to start reclaiming your own movement, join me in the Reclaim Movement membership for classes, both live and by replay, and countless videos of mini movement breaks to add into your daily life, covering practical and fun, important natural movements. Visit reclaimmovement.co.uk/membership to get started with your 7-day free trial. See you for the next episode, and thank you so much for listening.